The Amex Gold Card has recently undergone a big refresh, as I'm sure y'all know by now, which yes does include a new white gold design that doesn't quite look like their marketing, and I'll show y'all exactly what it looks like towards the middle or end of this video. But with these changes, it's time to reanalyze this card to see whether or not it's still a viable option with its new credits, benefits, spending caps, etc. And as you can tell from the title of this video, I'm not a massive fan of these changes, and I'm actually really glad that I canceled this card recently, but I will approach everything in this video from as neutral of a standpoint as possible, because this card does still make sense for some of y'all out there. Before we dive in, I did notice that less than 20% of y'all are actually subscribed to the channel, so if you can check that button down below this video before leaving today, that would mean a ton to me so we can get this content pushed out to people that need it. Now let's go ahead and cover the details of the new Amex Gold Card. And there's no better place to start this section than by talking about the bad news, that of course being the annual fee. As of July 25th, 2024, the annual fee on the Amex Gold Card increased from $250 to $325. Now this does apply immediately for anybody that's looking to apply for this card as a new user, but for existing card members, this takes effect if your card renews after October 1st of 2024. So if your card does renew before then, you can lock in these new benefits and this new card in general at the lower $250 annual fee, which is likely a pretty good move, depending on if this card is actually for you, which we're going to figure out by the end of this video. As for spending categories, the spending categories on this card are exactly the same as before, but they have introduced some spending caps to it. But just to cover all of them again really quickly, for one, it's going to give you 4x back at restaurants globally, and that is now on up to $50,000 of spending per calendar year, which is a new cap. It gives you 4x back at US supermarkets on up to $25,000 of spending per calendar year. That cap is exactly the same. And then the same 3x back on airfare booked directly with airlines or through Amex Travel, and 1x on everything else. So the only new thing regarding the spending categories is that $50,000 cap on the dining purchases. And while this is not going to impact the vast majority of people that use this card, if you do spend obviously more than that on dining, this could negatively impact you pretty heavily. The more interesting changes though have to do with the credits and benefits on this card. So let's go ahead and start by talking about the two new credits that they introduced to it. The first one being the Resy Credit, and this is $100 worth of annual Resy credits broken up in the form of $50 semi-annual credits. So you have one $50 credit from January to June and one from July to December. And this is for all eligible purchases on US Resy restaurants. So obviously if you do dine at any Resy restaurants in the US twice a year, this is actually a pretty positive credit. And to my understanding, you don't actually have to book a reservation through Resy in order to activate this credit. As long as you are enrolled in it, if you just dine at any of the restaurants that are partnered with Resy, this credit will automatically activate, meaning that it's basically just a new dining credit on the Gold Card. I will say I do like the semi-annual nature rather than having it being another monthly credit, but unfortunately, the second new credit they added to this card is a monthly credit again, that being the Dunkin Donuts credit. What they give you for this is $84 worth of annual credits with Dunkin Donuts, but this is only given to you at valid US Dunkin locations and in $7 per month increments. To me, this benefit is like actually hilarious and kind of feels like a slap in the face from Amex with their monthly credit structure. But of course, if you do frequent Dunkin Donuts for any reason, then this credit could actually be beneficial for you. Remember though, now going to a Dunkin Donuts, going out of your way to do so with this new credit does not count in lowering your effective annual fee for this card, because you'll be doing extra work to get value from this card that you would not have had to do before. Also, probably not a healthy habit to start here either. The annual $120 worth of dining credits on the Amex Gold Card has been around for a long time, but it is actually being modified. What they've done is remove two of the partners that used to be a part of the dining credit, that being the Milk Bar and Shake Shack, and they added Five Guys as a new option. So now the list of establishments you can activate this credit at have turned into Five Guys, Grubhub, The Cheesecake Factory, Wine.com, and Goldbelly. And I don't know about y'all, I feel like the Shake Shack credit actually was a pretty good one. Like I feel like a lot of people used it for that. Maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like that's what I get the most comments about. So it's sad to see them go, but then again, if you did always go to Five Guys before this credit was modified, then this is a net positive for you. I think for most people though, the value from this credit has basically remained unchanged. And speaking of unchanging credits, we still have the Uber Cash credit of $120 per year total, broken into $10 per month increments. And remember, this is just deposited to your Uber Cash account at a rate of $10 per month. And remember that none of these credits, including the Uber Cash credit, roll over month to month, so they're either use it or lose it. And if all of these credits do sound like a lot, first of all, they are, but there's one method that I've used to consistently track all of my credits across all of my 15 credit cards, and that's through the app called Max Rewards. With Max Rewards, I'm able to keep track of all of my credits, whether they're monthly, quarterly, annually, what have you. And that's one really helpful feature, but this app does way more than that. It's a full-on credit card management app that allows you to track things like your total point balances, card balances, bill due dates, and more from practically any lender, all in one convenient interface. Another big use case for this app for me is that it tells me exactly what card to use use at the exact location I'm currently shopping in or for a future location that I search for in the app. And they also have a paid tier that I personally paid for called Max Rewards Gold, which not only automatically activates your quarterly rotating categories for you on your cards like your Chase Freedom Flex, but also automatically activates your credit card offers for you, which can be a big plus and help you save money in the background. If you're interested in even just trying out the free features, please be sure to download it through the link in my description and enter the promo code Spencer whenever you sign up to give you a 1-month discount off of your annual Max Rewards Gold subscription if you ever do decide to upgrade. Thank you to Max Rewards for sponsoring this video, but let's get back into the content. The last change that we have to touch on with this card is that it now gives you a white gold option that you can change your card to if you currently have it or apply fresh for if you don't have it yet. And before we move into the second part of this video where I'll be discussing my personal opinions about all of these changes and who should be keeping this card versus who shouldn't, I'll go ahead and unbox it here for y'all and compare it to the rose gold and the classic gold versions that I also have. Okay, so as you can see, I have the envelope here of the new Amex white gold card. Disclaimer, this is going to be the business version of this card since I canceled the personal version a few months back, but obviously the design is exactly the same besides a little business logo on the front. Since I already had the Amex business gold card, this is just going to be a replacement card. And if you want to do this yourself, you can actually go into the replace a card tab in your Amex account, and just when they ask you the reason for you requesting a new card, you can say just to change the design, send it with the same card numbers besides the CVV, and you're basically all set. So yeah, honestly, nothing important in this package really. They have a return envelope here that I'm not going to be using, and then the card itself. Obviously, if you ordered this card fresh, it's going to be a completely different package. And I've unboxed the personal gold card on my channel before, so you can watch that after this if you're interested. But now it's time to reveal the new white Amex Gold card here in 3, 2, 1. And there it is. So as you can even tell just from me moving it a little bit here in the light, it looks drastically different depending on what lighting it is in. Whenever my white light hits it just right, it actually looks pretty nice in my opinion. But then you turn it out of the light a little bit and it starts to just kind of look like a rusted platinum card. Either way, let's pull this thing off and get a closer look at it. I don't know, y'all. I've heard a lot of negative comments about this card so far, but I don't necessarily hate it. The back isn't anything offensive either. It's just very normal, kind of yellow gold. And yes, all of the gold is a bit muted here on the front. And I don't love that the color of the text and everything is so much darker, but I kind of think it's cool. Like it's different. So I don't know. I'm not going to be returning this one anytime soon. I think I will actually use it. And just to give you a comparison of that between my other Amex Gold card designs here, you can go into my card binder here, pull out the rose gold and then the classic gold as well. Pull up the classic gold here first. I know I'm not blocking this number. That's because this card is canceled. As you can see, this is the classic gold look, which I do love so much. And then we have the rose gold version, which actually has grown on me as well. I don't really think I have a negative view on any of the Amex Gold card designs, but yeah, nothing too crazy here either. And then bringing in the white gold card design again, you can kind of see them all together and pick your poison on which one you actually would like to go with. So yeah, with these all being shown, let's go ahead and dive into the next part of the video. Okay, now let's talk about my opinions of the new Amex Gold card. I'm going to break this section down into 4 main points, starting with the first one being that the value proposition of this card is still the same. I still think that most people are going to get and use this card for its excellent earning categories, specifically on food purchases, because not only does it give you 4x back on those food purchases, but it gives you 4x Amex membership rewards points back, which is much more valuable than cash back, as long as you know how to redeem those points in the best way, which would be through Amex's transfer partners. So if you have a large family and you're funneling a ton of food spend through this credit card, it may very well still be the best option for you, but with the increase in the annual fee, if you don't consider the credits at all, you're going to have to be spending a lot more money than you would have before. So while this card is awesome for its earning categories, we have to realize that that's not the only thing that's going to give you positive value, especially when there are a ton of no annual fee cards that give you 3 to 5x on these exact purchases. Like for example, you can get the Capital One Saver 1 to cover you at 3% back on dining and groceries, and then a City Custom Cash or 2 to cover you on those categories at 5x or what have you. There's really a bunch of options these days. And also remember that this is of course an Amex credit card, which means it's not always internationally accepted, and the earning category for groceries, not to mention the credits which we're about to get into, become useless abroad because they are strictly US based. So again, to really get positive value from this card, I wouldn't just think about the earning categories. We also need to consider the credits and benefits. So my second point here is going to be about how I value these credits and benefits if I was to still hold this card, considering again, I did close it a few months back. As for the new Resy Credit, I actually probably would value this at the full $100 and would consider that to entirely offset the $75 annual fee increase, of course with the understanding that I was already getting positive value before these changes. It's funny because looking at the Resy website, I didn't realize that a lot of my girlfriend and I's favorite restaurants are actually associated with Resy, meaning that I would have naturally gotten positive value from this credit anyways. Now, as for the $7 monthly Dunkin credit, I do feel like this one kind of came out of left field. And although it is something that some people will get a lot of use out of, I don't really think it adds to the value proposition of this card much at all. And it's definitely not something I would ever naturally use, considering I have a gluten and dairy allergy for one, and I don't like coffee or anything, so there's just no reason I would ever go to a Dunkin', so the value of this credit to me would be just zero. As for the dining and Uber credits, which again, mostly remain unchanged, I would still value these at the full $240 personally, because that is the value that I got from the card in this past year. But as I talked about in that video, even though I did get that amount of value from the credits, I do think there's more than meets the eye with this, and I just couldn't stand to keep tracking these things every single month just to get value from the card every month, especially when there are plenty of other options out there that give me competitive earning rates and don't require as much mental hassle. My third point here is that with these changes, it just shows me that Amex is continuing to trend in the wrong direction. It has just become completely obvious at this point that Amex's whole business strategy, at least in the credit card side of things, is to every few years raise annual fees and add annoying monthly credits for us to keep track of. So even though I'm speaking to an audience that really cares about credit cards and is willing to put in that effort to get that positive value, I just don't think the vast majority of people should actually be getting Amex credit cards at this point. Now, just to use this card as an example here, without using any of the credits on the Amex Gold Card, of course, your effective annual fee is $325. But the way that they portray it to you is that if you do use all of the credits and benefits, which is more than $400 worth of value, now your effective annual fee is negative $99, meaning they're paying you money to keep it every year. However, the hitch is that you have to be using every one of the credits every month to get that value. So I'm convinced now more than ever that if you're anybody like me, if you fit the same demographic I do, this credit card is not made for you. Of course, there are niche cases in which what I just said is not true, but in my opinion, the only people this card is really good for is somebody with a large family, spending a ton of money on dining, and they live in a metropolitan area where all of these credits are very easily used naturally. And actually, further than that, you also have to be the type of person that is only going to use your Amex points for travel through their transfer partners, because in my experience, the Amex travel portal doesn't always give you great deals. Granted, they have the fine hotels and resorts collection with the Amex Platinum card, but that's not what we're talking about here. And you obviously don't want to redeem your points for cashback with Amex unless you have the Amex Charles Schwab Platinum card. So again, the more things you have to check off of a list to see if you're actually right for the card is just showing us that it's becoming less and less valuable for the average person. However, as I've always said with this card and all of Amex's credit cards, if you do fit their target demographic, this card is amazing. I'm just speaking to the people that are like me out there that got this card initially for the hype mainly and could justify to ourselves that we would get positive value from this card with just a couple little tricks here and there. But Amex keeps showing us with the refreshes to their cards that they are targeting a very specific audience, which of course is not me right now. It could be me one day, but it's not me today. My fourth point here is going to be some last notes before you go to apply for this card if you are considering it. For one, remember that since this is an Amex credit card, you can technically only get one welcome offer in your lifetime. So be sure to find the elevated welcome offer at the time of you applying and don't apply for any less than that, because of course, this welcome offer is super important since you can only get it once. On the same note, this card really does not have any good downgrade options. It just has the Amex Green card, which still has an annual fee of $150. So just make sure that it is one that you're probably going to be keeping long term and it isn't one of the first credit cards you've ever applied for, since if you do end up wanting to get rid of it, you're going to have to cancel it at some point. Now, speaking for those that already have the card and are trying to decide whether or not they should keep or cancel it, I'd say that if your annual fee is renewing before October 1st, it could very well be worth locking in this card for another year at the lower annual fee to test out if these benefits do give you more positive value than before. And either way, if you're considering renewing or canceling it, I would recommend requesting a retention offer on this card, which I've shown exactly how to do in past videos of mine. And no matter what camp you fall into here, please do some effective annual fee calculations while being completely honest with yourself to save yourself some money and just some time down the line. And if you want to hear how I personally audit all of my annual fee credit cards to make sure I'm getting positive value from all of them, be sure to go ahead and click into this video next. And as always, Odin and I both want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, and we'll catch you guys next time.